Because another thing I thought was actually quite interesting about this period of time was it makes perfect sense why you developed, like you said yourself, you weren't the most skilled player. And in your scene, to tie to what Lagia said, you were always in like the third best team. So you were always the guy where it's like, forget even just getting the next good player. That might be the player in the second best team. Like you have to get the player who's before that player and develop him into that player and then get the next one. So it's like if you're in that position, I know Prodax had the same thing his whole career. Your entire career is like, right, I finally found someone, they've got some skills. Let's try and use them really quickly because like in 1 year they might just be in Fnatic and I've lost them already and I have to start all over again. So in that scenario, you have to understand the game on a different level. You can't just go, well, I've got the best player in this game and I'm going to use him the most effectively. You have to like somehow, I guess in some scenario, you're figuring out for these players who they are as a player, right? They don't know how to be the best player yet, right? If they some up and coming name, I mean, you had loads of them, Exist, all of them pretty much, right? Gogs, Get Right, all these guys in the original days. So what was that process like, trying to find the next talent? Because like I say, you're not even just trying to find out how good the guy is. You have to almost use him immediately because if he's good, he's going to be gone soon.
Yeah, I remember like 2009 to 11 was probably the worst years or like before that as well, where NIP took Get Right and we like Gux and yeah, you had everyone. It was almost became ridiculous. I mean, it was
Sweden.
Yeah, Fnatic tried to get, you remember the Swedish Nico?
Yes.
At one point, and he actually said no, and that was at that point my team sort of stabilized at least. But I don't know. Yeah, it did make it a bigger challenge, and you had to learn how to sort of introduce a new player into a system over and over again. You also had to learn how to sort of, on certain maps, you didn't have the perfect players for all the positions. You had to play around with that. And that actually gets me very excited for what's happening right now, where people are adding more players as well. Right? I think that's really interesting. Going for the 6 or even 7-man lineups, where you could actually start messing around with... It gives up so much more freedom on the different maps, right? Because I remember when I was in Lions and they took a Gux or whatever, right? And you say, okay, he's a key player on Nuke. Like they would change Permavedo. Like, what do you do, right? It was so awkward.
Sure. No, that's also another thing as well that like I think is actually kind of ridiculous is when you lose those talents as well. Like, you have to basically figure out overnight, how do I replace that guy on this spot on the map? Like, you aren't getting a new player. You've been forced to get a new player. Like, you're the one working now with, in theory, maybe even a worse player. And you have to keep going, otherwise people judge you as the in-game leader. I think it's you that fell off if the results go down, right?
Yeah, and at that point, as I said, like, it wasn't... At that time, you could play with just individual skill, and in that sense, I guess individual skill was more important.
Sure.
So I guess, especially when we lost Get Right, I think it was in Big Grip. I think that was the hardest hit for me because it was my first team. We made some success. We beat NIP in the ESWC qualifier. This is literally 13 years ago. But when he left and we sort of dropped off so hard, I mean, we tried to bring in if you guys remember, RWA. I wonder how many viewers knows that nickname. Yeah, we tried to bring him in like an old school player. Obviously didn't work. We got destroyed by everyone. And it was just like, are we done now? And as you said, people's like, is Threat really a good IGL? Maybe it was Get Right doing everything. But it was sort of like you kept grinding it out, and even though I was only Fnatic for 6 months, I sort of, at least I felt there that I could have been the IGL, and that I sort of belonged at that level. And I mean, I went back to Lions. We weren't as good as Fnatic, obviously, but we still sort of maintained a top 10, and for quite a period of time, a top 5 team in the world.